Tyrone Muggsy Bogues was born on January 9, 1965, in the heart of Baltimore's Lafayette housing projects, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America. Life expectancy there was shockingly low, just 20 years old. And for a young Muggsy, survival itself was a miracle. His mother Elaine had already suffered through 2 failed pregnancies. But when Tyrone arrived, she called him her miracle child. That miracle was nearly cut short when Tyrone was only 5 years old. One night, Tyrone and his sister Chiron heard a commotion outside their building. Like curious kids, they ran out to see what was happening. What they saw was a violent street fight, common in their neighborhood. But then, things turned deadly. A shop window shattered. A rock had been thrown. The store owner, thinking the kids were responsible, came outside with a loaded shotgun. Without hesitation, he opened fire. 5-year-old Tyrone was hit. Not with a direct shell, but with buckshot. Miraculously, the pellets missed all his vital organs. He survived. But that moment changed him forever. After recovering, Tyrone didn't fear what people said about him anymore. Not the bullies, not the coaches, not the doubters. He'd been shot at. Everything else felt small in comparison. Growing up, basketball became his escape. His first basketball came at just 3 years old. And though his father was only 5 feet 5 inches and his mother just 4 feet 11 inches, Tyrone didn't care. While others saw limitations, he saw a challenge. Still, every time he picked up a ball, he was laughed at. Too short. Too weak. Too small to ever matter on the court. But his mother told him something he never forgot. Don't let them steal your joy. They don't know your heart. If you love this game, you play it. And so he did. Through hours of practice and relentless self-belief, Tyrone became known in the neighborhood for his fearless defense. Players would joke that he was mugging taller opponents, and that's how he got his nickname, Muggsy. Even so, darkness was never far away. His father, Richard Bogues, lost his job as a dock worker and turned to crime to support the family. When Muggsy was just 12, his father went to prison. Still, Tyrone held no bitterness. He promised himself one day he'd make enough money to get his father out. What kept him going through it all, the violence, the poverty, the bullying, was basketball. It gave him focus, purpose, and just maybe a way out. Because little Muggsy had big dreams. By the time Muggsy Bogues hit high school, he was already known in Baltimore's street courts. Not for size or strength, but for speed, intensity, and heart. Still standing at just 5 feet 3 inches, he looked like a child among men. But when the ball tipped, Muggsy transformed into a force of nature. He enrolled at Dunbar High School, a basketball powerhouse where he played alongside future NBA players like Reggie Williams, David Wingate, and Reggie Lewis. They were all taller, stronger, and more naturally gifted. But what separated Muggsy was something you couldn't measure on a stat sheet: leadership. Their coach, Bob Wade, pushed the team relentlessly. He had them running defensive drills with bricks in their hands, literally. He believed that if practice was hell, game day would feel like heaven. And for Muggsy, this tough love paid off. Despite his size, he commanded the floor. He was the heart of the team, Wade's extension on the court. Muggsy's defensive instincts, court vision, and passing made him impossible to ignore. And his voice. Always the loudest, directing traffic, leading with purpose. Dunbar went 60-0 during Muggsy's 2 seasons, winning back-to-back state championships. He even won team MVP over his best friend Reggie Williams, a 6 feet 7 inches superstar. Yet, when it came time for college recruitment, Muggsy's phone stayed silent. Why? One word: height. Despite never losing a high school game and leading one of the greatest teams in prep basketball history, Division I colleges passed him over. Scouts saw a sideshow, not a point guard. He was considered a liability, too small to survive college basketball. But Coach Wade didn't give up. When he was invited to coach at the prestigious 5-star basketball camp, he brought Muggsy with him. It was Muggsy's last chance to prove he could hang with the best in the country. And he did more than that, he stole the show. He was out there stripping the ball from future pros, dishing no-look passes, leading fast breaks with fearless energy. Coaches couldn't believe their eyes. Offers started coming in, and Muggsy eventually accepted a full-ride scholarship to Wake Forest University, joining the Atlantic Coast Conference, one of the toughest leagues in the nation. But just as things looked promising, Muggsy ran into another wall. He was accused of cheating on a test, unfairly, due to a misunderstanding with a professor. The school nearly expelled him, and for the first time, he questioned whether he even belonged. Was it about his academics or something else? Muggsy considered leaving Wake Forest. But once again, he turned to the woman who had always grounded him, his mother, Elaine. "Rise above them," she said. "You're not here because they let you be. You're here because you earned it." So Muggsy stayed. And that decision changed his life. Over the next 3 seasons, he went from an overlooked freshman to the starting point guard of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. He led the conference in assists and steals. His speed, vision, and grit made him a nightmare for opposing guards. Even Michael Jordan's North Carolina squad struggled to stop him. By his junior year, Muggsy was averaging over 11 points, 8 assists, and 3 steals per game in a league filled with future NBA giants. Coaches were starting to take notice, not because of how tall he was, but because of how much bigger he played than anyone else. Then came his biggest break yet, an invitation to represent Team USA in the 1986 FIBA World Championship. Surrounded by rising stars like Steve Kerr, David Robinson, and Kenny Smith, Muggsy was the smallest player there again. But he shut down Europe's top scorer, Dražen Petrovic, and helped the US bring home gold. That tournament turned heads everywhere. Scouts stopped laughing. They started watching. Muggsy Bogues was no longer just the shortest guy on the court. He was now one of the best. In 1987, history was made. With the 12th overall pick in the NBA draft, the Washington Bullets selected Tyrone Muggsy Bogues, making him the shortest player ever drafted into the league at just 5 feet 3 inches tall. The announcement sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Fans were stunned. Commentators scoffed. Some even called it a publicity stunt, especially since the Bullets also had the NBA's tallest player at the time, 7 feet 7 inches Manu Ginobili. The sight of the two standing side by side was treated more like a circus act than a basketball decision. But Muggsy wasn't there to be anyone's sideshow. He signed with Michael Jordan's agent, David Falk, and immediately started preparing for life in the NBA. He even played in the United States Basketball League during the offseason to stay sharp. He also signed an endorsement deal, fittingly promoting Ford's smallest car, using the money not for luxury but for love, to hire a lawyer and finally get his father released from prison 8 years early. Muggsy's rookie year with the Bullets was promising, but also frustrating. He averaged 20 minutes a game, putting up 5 assists, 5 points, and nearly 2 steals, solid numbers for a backup point guard. But behind the scenes, his coach Wes Unseld didn't believe in him. In the playoffs, Muggsy played just 2 minutes total. 2. Despite his hustle and ability, he was benched, marginalized, treated like a gimmick, not a game changer. Still, he stayed hopeful. The Bullets assured him they'd protect him in the upcoming expansion draft, that they had plans for him next season, that he was part of their future. But just 1 week later, they lied. The Charlotte Hornets, one of the NBA's newest teams, selected Muggsy with a 3rd overall pick in the expansion draft. No warning, no goodbye, just betrayal. Yet Muggsy wasn't broken. He was energized. Charlotte was a blank slate, a fresh start. Even better, his college friend Del Curry was already on the team. This was his chance to build something new from the ground up, a team where he could lead, not just participate. Or so he thought. The Hornets head coach, Dick Harter, made it clear he didn't believe in Muggsy either. After games, he mocked Muggsy's height to reporters, sometimes kneeling on the ground to imitate him. He refused to give him consistent minutes, treated him like a novelty. It was déjà vu again. But Muggsy had been through worse. He'd survived gunfire, poverty, and abandonment. A coach's insults weren't going to shake him. He put his head down and worked. Every practice, every game, every chance he got. And finally, when Coach Harter was fired midway through the 1989-90 season after a disastrous start, Muggsy got the opportunity he'd been waiting for. New coach Gene Littles trusted him, and Muggsy delivered. He doubled his stats, averaging nearly 10 points and over 10 assists per game. His defense was elite. His leadership was undeniable. Charlotte didn't win many games that season, but they finally had a direction, and at the center of it was Muggsy Bogues. Then came the turning point. In 1991, the Hornets drafted Larry Johnson with the number 1 overall pick, a bruising, dynamic forward who would help transform the franchise. That same summer, Charlotte's general manager Alan Bristow, a longtime believer in Muggsy's game, became the new head coach. With Bristow's fast-paced offense, Muggsy was now the engine of the team. And he wasn't just playing better. He was helping others shine too. His connection with Del Curry deepened. Their sons, including a young Steph Curry, grew up side by side, watching Muggsy lead both on and off the court. The Hornets finally had a foundation. And Muggsy Bogues? He was no longer just the shortest guy in the NBA. He was the heartbeat of an entire franchise. By the early 1990s, the Charlotte Hornets had finally turned a corner. With Muggsy Bogues running the point, Larry Johnson dominating the paint, and Alonzo Mourning joining the squad in 1992, the franchise was no longer just another expansion team. They were contenders. And for Muggsy, it was vindication. In the 1992-93 season, the Hornets finished with their best record yet, 44 wins, good enough for a playoff berth. And their first-round matchup? The legendary Boston Celtics, led by Muggsy's longtime friend Reggie Lewis. Game 1 was brutal, not just on the scoreboard, but emotionally. Reggie collapsed on the court due to a heart condition. Though he stood up and walked off, everyone knew something was wrong. Still, Muggsy locked in. Game 2 went to double overtime. The Celtics were down 1. They ran a perfect play for the win, but missed. The Hornets had their first playoff victory in franchise history. Then came Game 3 and Game 4. Muggsy's defense, passing, and leadership carried them past the Celtics and into the second round. They were living the dream, a team of underdogs becoming contenders. But dreams can fade quickly. In the next round, the Hornets faced the New York Knicks, a powerhouse led by Patrick Ewing. The series was close, but the Hornets fell short. And soon after, tragedy struck again. Reggie Lewis, Muggsy's best friend since high school, collapsed during off-season training. This time, he didn't get back up. Just a week later, Muggsy's father passed away as well. 2 pillars of his life, gone within days. He was devastated, but he didn't let grief break him. If anything, he played harder. In the 1994-95 season, Muggsy averaged a double-double, over 10 points and 10 assists per game, something no other player his size has ever done. The Hornets missed the playoffs by just 1 game. But the message was clear. Muggsy wasn't slowing down. He was still one of the most effective point guards in the league. Then, the news that shook the NBA. Michael Jordan was back. Charlotte would meet the Chicago Bulls in the 1995 playoffs. And though the Hornets fought hard, they couldn't stop the return of greatness. The Bulls eliminated them in 4 games. That series marked a turning point. Muggsy started suffering from chronic knee issues. He played limited games in the 1995-96 season. Team doctors told him to retire. The critics called him washed up. But giving up was never in his DNA. He returned for the 1996-97 season and started 65 games, averaging 8 points and 7 assists. But behind the scenes, things were unraveling. New management and coaching staff didn't believe in him. He was excluded from practices, left off rotation charts, humiliated in front of fans who used to chant his name. And then, the final insult. During a preseason game in Charlotte, Muggsy never left the bench. The fans erupted, chanting, "We want Muggsy." It was clear the people still believed. But the organization didn't. Shortly after, he was traded to the Golden State Warriors. His exit from Charlotte, the team he helped build, was bitter. He left as their all-time leader in assists and steals, a record that still stands. Yet, he was discarded like an afterthought. Golden State brought no comfort. Tensions were high, chemistry was broken, and Muggsy felt like an outsider. So, in 1999, he took one last chance, signing with the Toronto Raptors to join his old friend Del Curry and mentor a young team, led by Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady. This time, he wasn't there to be the star. He was the wise veteran, the locker room leader, the one who taught young players how to run, how to lead, and how to believe. Then, the hardest decision of all. With 3 years left on his contract, Muggsy retired. Not because of injury or age or money, but because his mother, Elaine Bogues, his biggest supporter, was battling cancer. She was everything to him. And once she passed, basketball no longer felt like home. "I didn't want to play anymore," he said. "It felt like she saw my last game, and that was enough." Muggsy walked away from the game quietly. No farewell tour. No standing ovations. Just peace. But his impact didn't fade. To this day, Muggsy remains one of the most beloved players in NBA history. Not because of how high he could jump, but because of how high he lifted everyone around him. He shattered every expectation. He fought every doubt. He made it not by being the biggest, but by having the biggest heart. As his former teammate Rex Chapman once said, Muggsy was a 5 feet 3 inches Jason Kidd. Fast, brilliant, and fearless. And maybe, just maybe, that's what greatness really looks like.